to Heidi.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's NCFE webinar about the Principles of Montessori. My name is Heidi Comley, and I'm the account executive, or one of the account executives for NCFE. NCFE are an educational charity and leader in vocational and technical learning. We combine over 170 years of experience with deep insight, working with a network of expert collaborators to shape smarter solutions around the greatest learning needs. In doing this, we're working for a fairer education system for all learners to power inclusivity and choice. Today, we'll be speaking about the NCFE Cash Level 3 and Level 4 diplomas in Montessori. A recorded version of this webinar will be available afterwards, and today's presenters will be Janet King, and Janet is our Senior Manager for Education and Childcare, and also Preeta Patel, Head of Education for Montessori Centre International. I'll now pass you over to Janet.
Thank you. Thanks, Heidi, and welcome everybody. So as Heidi has said, this is going to be recorded. So just so you know that this will be recorded. And also, if you do have any questions, we've got a chat function in the Teams there. So do feel free to ask any questions in there. Okay, so let's consider how NCFE cash qualifications embrace the Montessori pedagogy. We have two qualifications, one at level 3 and also one at level 4. The level 3 diploma in Montessori pedagogy from birth to 7 is an early years educator qualification, which aims to provide the learner with the expertise, skills and professional approach needed to become a facilitator of Montessori education. It includes classroom-based and placement hours. It's been designed to meet the criteria, as I say, for early years educator, and that's in line with the early years educator criteria from the DFE requirements. As such, it's full and relevant for the sector. Students will be 18 years of age when they start this qualification, and there are 400 placement hours in an approved Montessori early years setting. Evidence gained from placement will contribute greatly to the learner's portfolio of evidence. And we'll take a look in a little while at one of the specifications and be able to look through some of those units that make up that level 3 diploma. And learners will successfully complete all of those 13 mandatory units. So no optional units, but working your way through 13 mandatory units. And all of the assessment is internal, no externally set examinations. Natural progression, or indeed an appropriate starting point for some, will be the NCFE Cash Level 4 diploma in Montessori pedagogy birth to 7 early years educator. So again, learners may progress directly into work in a Montessori early years setting from the level 3 or from the level 4 diploma. Again, as with the level 3, the units are internally assessed using a range of assessment methods and skills-based competence learning. Assessment decisions will be made by occupationally competent assessors. On this slide here, we can learn a little bit more about progression. So think about level 4. Think about a starting point, and your training providers and indeed your cash colleagues, your NCFE cash colleagues will be able to help you and guide you into the appropriate starting points, whether that's a level 3, whether that's a level 4. Now, as I said, these qualifications hold that early years educator criteria. That's at both levels, which means that it's full and relevant. So progression into the workplace is absolutely an option. And here you have that option of being able to work in a Montessori setting. to follow that very strong pedagogy, but also you will have the option to move on to a level 4 diploma, to deepen your understanding of this pedagogy and to become to really invest in that philosophy. And we're going to learn a lot more about that philosophy as we progress. So this is a reference that would take you straight through to the actual qualification page on our website. What we're going to do today, though, is actually look at that qualification and go through the unit. So let's pause a moment now, and I'm just going to stop sharing my screen if I can. Oh, I think, Stacey, you've already got it up there, haven't you? Fantastic. So can everybody see that? If I can have a thumbs up from colleagues, perhaps, that would be really useful. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, so as we go through this, then you can see on this particular page, this is taken from the Level 3 Diploma specification, you've got that lovely list there of the units, which is really useful. So let's just take a moment. So study skills is the first one. We all need to do those. Really good starting point, good start, good place to start. Laying down the foundations for all of that learning. We come into education sometimes from various points and from different actual experiences. Absolutely, of course we do. So having that study skills as one of those first units is absolutely paramount to be able to create those opportunities and to create those choices and starting points from an even playing field and looking at all the different study skills that you need. Unit 2, the core of all of this, I always say, because this is where we're exploring the Montessori philosophy. We look then at the principles of child development and observation in an early years Montessori learning environment, and those skills are key. Tuning into child development through observation, through getting to know the children that we're working with, is key to everything. It's key to being able to meet interests, and it's also key to being able to respond to and value individual children for who they are and not what we might want them to be. We look at contemporary early childhood practice in an early years Montessori learning environment. And of course, that all-important promotion of children's health and well-being. Unit 6 is looking at activities of everyday living in an early years Montessori centre, in an early years learning environment. Education of the senses, numeracy, arithmetic, literacy, knowledge and understanding of the world. Creativity, that's got to be one of my favourites, because when we think creativity, we don't always think about expression of imagination and all of the different things. We think before we actually do. We imagine before we do. So creativity is something that I'm really interested in, one of my favourite units. Developing Montessori practice, so professional development, is really key as well. And then we have, of course, if we go to page 16, we've got practice and principles there, sorry, bringing up unit 13. And if we look at unit 2, again, another one of my favourites, because exploring the Montessori philosophy here is absolutely key. And this is what really sets this qualification apart. This is what really gives that underpinning knowledge of this different approach and explores the benefits of such and the opportunities that the Montessori pedagogy offers. So the unit introduces key principles. I'm just literally reading from the aim here, and this is, remember, is taken from our qualification specification, which you will find on our qualification hub. So the unit introduces key principles and practices of the Montessori approach, the approach to early years education, including the historical context of Dr. Maria Montessori. The focus is placed on the principles of how Montessori's theories are applied in the classroom by exploring stages of development, the favourable environment, the role of the Montessori educator, and additional key elements of the Montessori philosophy and pedagogy. And as we scroll down, we can see here that it's arranged just as you would find in any of the NCFE cash specifications. You've got those learning outcomes and you've got the assessment criteria that set the verbs and set the tone for what the student is expected to be able to produce in terms of evidence. What's really good about the way that these units are produced is what comes next. So if we scroll down a little bit, we can actually see that the students are given some hints and tips there. And these will really help the student and the tutor alike, because here we've got indicative content that runs through those specific learning outcomes. And that's really useful. And there's also further along there some really useful resources. So each unit is going to be presented in this way. And that is something that I think, will be of value. So thank you. Thank you, Stacey. Thanks for that. What I won't do is I was going to go back onto the PowerPoint, but I won't, because actually I'm going to take this opportunity now to introduce you to Preeti. Thank you, Preeti. Preeti's going to make absolute sense of everything we've talked about so far, the principles of Montessori, and putting that into practice. So please can I welcome Preeti from the Montessori Centre International, MCI. Thank you very much, Preeti. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Janet, and thank you for sharing the specification criteria, therefore, for the students, because I think it just sets into context what we're going to talk about. So everybody, as Janet just explained, the Montessori course that is available on the NCFE Cash, as the NCFE Cash course, not only allows you to work with in any early years settings, but it also adds the Montessori philosophy to your learning experience. So I'm just going to share a few slides with you to help you understand that a little bit better. So bear with me while I do that. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. Okay, so Montessori for now. So the main aim of Montessori education is to help each individual child reach their full potential in an environment specifically prepared to meet the child's needs. And I think for people who are on the screen today, it will be sort of interesting for them to understand what the Montessori method really means. So the Montessori approach is holistic and aims to develop the whole child. Fundamental to this approach is the belief that every child's early years from birth to 6 are the period when they have the greatest capacity to learn. And Maria Montessori called this time the absorbent mind. She literally likened the children's brains to a sponge, where the capacity to just soak up information was at its maximum capacity. Montessori saw that children learned best by doing, and that happy, self-motivated learners form positive images of themselves as confident, successful people. She created specifically designed environments, including resources that foster independence. Sorry, excuse me. I'm just trying to clear my screen there. That foster independence and a love for learning from a very young age. Montessori left a legacy that combines the philosophy of freedom and self-development for children with a practical approach. And she advocated the principle of following the child. Now, this phrase doesn't literally mean following the child or letting the child do whatever he or she wants. Rather, it's an acknowledgement that the child has their own pattern. And the key to understanding this idea is observation. And as Janet pointed out, the unit on observation is a really fundamental part of this course. Now, as Montessori practitioners or teachers, we constantly observe the child in the classroom. We pay careful attention to their interests and activities to which they are naturally drawn, and we monitor their understanding and development of skills. We then use this ability as our guide to helping them move forward. The Montessori teacher takes into account where each child is at a specific point in time, rather than imposing our idea of what the child should learn at that time. And I think this is what really sets this pedagogy apart from others. Now, If a child needs more time in a particular area, we have the freedom to give them that time to really learn that concept or skill. Or if they've mastered a skill or concept, we give them the opportunity to learn more about the concept through extensions, or we present them with more complex work related to build on that knowledge of that concept. From our observations, we're able to follow the child and determine their needs. And Maria Montessori sort of stated the term that we should follow the child, but follow the child as their leader. So whilst we're following the child, we're also leading and guiding their learning. We provide the opportunities to learn, to grow and develop in a safe and carefully prepared environment. And the environment is created with each child in mind, considering both their current development and their future needs. We respect the child and their natural progression, honoring their spirit and independence. The adults and the children are an integral part of this nurturing environment designed to facilitate the Montessori motto of following the child. The key principles of Montessori are supporting the child as an active learner. You'll see these links, those of you who are already in early years education, you'll start to see these links sort of matching up with what you will see in the EYFS curriculum. Respecting the inner life of the child, trusting the child's inner motivation, providing freedoms within limits, and encouraging the child's inner discipline. The key features of a Montessori environment allow choices and options which help scaffold the key fundamental principles of the favorable environment, the work cycle, vertical grouping, an empathetic educator as the key features. But I think maybe some of you might ask the question of what does Montessori offer the child of today? Learning that is rooted in reality. The materials in the classroom are all real and have a purpose. Every activity has a direct learning objective, which supports a number of indirect objectives, which prepare the child or children for other areas of the curriculum. The concrete learning experiences are foundations for the learning laid before the child moves to abstract concepts. The mixed age classrooms, or the vertical grouping that I mentioned earlier, is where peer learning is encouraged as younger children learn from each other, or where older children consolidate that learning that they have experienced by sharing their knowledge with their younger counterparts. This helps them develop leadership skills, independence, social responsibility, and self-awareness. The freedom within limits leads the child to be able to self-regulate. The consistency and safety of the environment in which the child can develop intrinsic motivation and be proactive in their own learning and in problem solving. Now, because the children are given the initiative, they grow up with a can-do attitude, so they're self-confident young people who move on through their life. The focus on the holistic development of the child, that includes the physical, the social, the mental and emotional and spiritual education of the child, is all part of the learning. Now, what's very unique about the Montessori curriculum is that it's individualized. So children have one-to-one lessons depending on the child's developmental stage, level and needs. And this way the child, is always able to do, or develops an attitude of being able to do, which encourages them to try new things and challenges. And this is only possible because the practitioner observes the children, determines what they need, and then facilitates it in the favorable environment. There's time and space given to the children. So rather than the day being broken down into specific learning areas or learning times, children generally have 2 long periods of uninterrupted periods during the day, which are about 2 to 3 hours long. So each child can really focus and concentrate on whatever learning they have chosen on that day. Now, what does this qualification offer you, the student? Now, as Janet highlighted at the beginning, you will get a qualification with the expertise and skills and professional approach needed to become a facilitator of Montessori education. Now, this qualification will allow you to work in a Montessori environment, and I hope that's where you will stay, but it doesn't mean that you can't work in other environments too. In fact, I think I'd be quite excited about the Montessori approach being taken to other environments. You get a very thorough preparation to start work in the sector with confidence. The course delivery will differ from provider to provider, but integral to the course are opportunities for self-reflection and reflective practice to ensure that you work towards being the best version of yourself as the educator. Montessori teachers have the opportunity to influence children's lives by giving the best of themselves to the children who are our future, so that our future can really flourish. And the starting point for that journey is very much this course. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a flavour of what can lead to once you sort of work with this qualification. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Preeti. That was amazing. If you don't mind, I wrote a few things down while you were talking because it was so interesting and so informative, and I think it might help as well some of the people that have joined us on the webinar today, and for those people who are tuning in at a later date. So some of the key things that I wrote down that really sort of signify with me, if you like, is obviously following the child, and that's your starting point, and that's sort of, you know, where you are. But I really loved this, honoring their spirit and independence. And I just think, yeah, absolutely. The holistic motivation and that intrinsic motivation that comes from that feeling of confidence. We need it so much, don't we? And when we read, the things that we're reading at the moment around children and families, young people, everybody's mental health at the moment seems to have really, it's on everybody's radar. And I just think actually that resilience, or that ability, that sort of have a go, that confidence that children will be learning and gaining from through this approach is the best that we can possibly hope from. So for our children. So I wrote that down. I also love the idea of children working with real resources, and we're moving away, and I think we are in society anyway, we're moving away to a more sustainable approach, and that's, in contagious within every area of our lives, and we see less and less plastic, but it's lovely to see that engagement with real resources. And the vertical classroom, that sort of, we do, don't we? We in families, we're not all the same age, are we? We're a mixture of children and siblings, and I think it does create that feeling of nurturing as well, and looking after each other and learning from each other. So yeah, those were the things I wrote down. Honoring spirit and independence. I love that. Active learners, real resources offering concrete learning experiences, vertical classroom experiences. Lovely. Intrinsic motivation. If we have that, Preeti, we've actually hit a few milestones.
We've absolutely cracked it. And I think what you just sort of highlighted there, Janet, yes, we're moving towards a more sustainable world. We've learned from past mistakes, but it's also about living in the real world. We don't live in a world that is full of plastics. There is going to be a time when we need to learn how to use real resources. So why not start that at birth? Why not prepare the child for the rest of their life? And, rather than baby proofing our homes as we often do by putting everything away, why don't we just include the child in our world and our lives? And I think that's the most important thing, because when you see children in the classroom working with these real resources, with these real materials, I know the initial feeling is of panic. Oh my gosh, they're going to break it, or they'll drop it, or something will happen. But they treat it with such beautiful care. It's absolutely phenomenal to watch. And you're talking to them about those key concepts, about things like weights and measures and size, and anything else that you might want to talk about. Using plastic objects doesn't really give you that feel. But if
you're right.
Yeah, if you're carrying a tray that has two jugs, one which is full of water and one which is empty, for example, you get to know what is heavy, what is light, how you're going to balance things, how you're going to negotiate a space. And that starts right from the moment the child comes into the environment. And it's the job of the facilitator, the educator, to ensure that those opportunities are available. So it is about, sometimes bringing people a little bit out of their comfort zone to think about how we can make this happen, because it's absolutely possible. And you know, the training, the course will really offer those opportunities for them to understand that. So I hope that helps them.
No, absolutely superb. Thank you so much. That was really informative and really insightful. So thank you. And I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to try and share my screen. I know that Stacey's on standby in case technology lets us down. I'm not the most technical. Let's have a look. Okay, so how are we doing? Can we see this? Okay, thank you for the nod. So thank you, Preeti, for allowing us into the world of Montessori and exploring those principles and really bringing the specification alive. And I hope, you know, that it's ignited lots of interest out there for people who are listening. I'm sure it absolutely has. It certainly has for me. I want to go and find out more right now. So I'm hoping it's done the same for you. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand back to Heidi. And Heidi, I know you have some additional information that you'd like to just run through with us. Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Preeti. That was very interesting. For everyone on the webinar today, it was really just to let you know, if you're an existing customer and you're interested in these diplomas, you can gain centre approval with us to register your learners within 48 hours. New customers can gain approval within 5 working days. The level 3 diploma is fundable for students from 19 under the Lifetime Skills Guarantee funding stream. And we have got the funding stream link on the chat as well for you. Also, the level 4 diploma is fundable via the Advanced Learner Loan. You can find further information, qualification specifications, support materials, all via the links, but also via our Qual Hub. Please don't hesitate to have a look at our website or contact your account executive or contact our customer services department. We're all here to help, and I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to say as well, thank you for joining us all today. We hope you found it useful. And also special thank you to our external guest, Preeti Patel. We really appreciate your time. And if you need further information, please have a look at the links on the chat. Thank you again.